write comics. I have a whole bunch of comics that I wrote. Many of them I created at my table. But I also teach creative writing at Full Sail University here in Orlando, Florida, where I have the coolest class at the university because I teach comic book writing as part of the creative writing program. And that's who I am.
My name is John Crowder. I'm a comic book writer. Probably most known for Rochelle, which is a story of Rochelle the Teen Cockroach with Antarctic Press. You can find us on social media as Rochelle the Teen Cockroach. We also have a website, RochelleTheTeenCockroach.com. Most recently, I'm also writing biographical wrestling comics for several WWE Hall of Famers, including Nikolai Volkov, Randy Poffo, and Killer Bees, Bruno Sammartino. That's all with Inverse Press and Squared Circle Comics. You can find them obviously online on social media, all those good places.
All right, guys, let me ask you the question everyone always asks. How did you guys get your start making comic books? Like, what made you first publish your first comic?
Well, that's an easy one for me. Is this microphone even working? Can y'all even hear?
Can you guys hear up there?
Can y'all hear at all?
Yeah, we're having mic problems, unfortunately.
Yeah, sorry, I'm talking into it, but it's
Hello?
not.
Okay, try this.
Okay.
See if
Okay,
we can-
so yeah, I got. I'm doing something.
Here,
to my
hold both. Hold both
No,
and see if
I got
it
it.
works.
I'll hold the steel just like this and not move it. So I got my start when I was very young. Well, I'd always wanted to do comics. I started reading them at about 7. And comics is actually what taught me to read, because I was not a reader until I started reading comics and my mom started feeding stuff to me. But it wasn't really until I was about a senior in high school that I decided this would be very cool if I could actually write comics. And my problem is I come from a family of farmers, and they didn't. No one knew. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to get into comics. I grew up in Mississippi, and one of the things my dad would always ask me is like, "How are you gonna make money?" And the problem is I don't know, Dad. I have no idea. So when I went into college, I went into college as a computer science major because it was a big deal in the 80s. And so I studied computer programming for about 2.5 years. Decided I absolutely hated the math, and I said, you know what? I have no idea how I'm going to get into the industry because I don't know, but this is what I want to do. And I was a comic book fan. I had a comic book collection. I knew all about the characters, and so I changed majors into creative writing and finished it, and I added another year to my degree. And I just started writing and submitting to Marvel. I know that I shouldn't have done that now, but I just started submitting to Marvel in DC and just submitting and submitting and submitting. And finally, I met a couple of artists who were in the same sort of boat. And we, kind of groused about our rejection letters. I've been rejected here, I've been rejected there, and that kind of thing. So...
And then the Ghostbusters came.
Yeah. I'm going to keep answering even though he walked away. And so one of the things that is important to comic book history is the Turtles had just been published. And everyone knows who the Turtles are today, but back then it was a big deal because they were black and white, they were an independent comic. And part of it was, we were like, oh look, these guys did it on their own without Marvel and DC. And there were other independent publishers, but we just decided, look, we can't sell anything to Marvel and DC, so why don't we just do our own comic? And that's exactly what we did. The three of us just said, let's do this comic, let's make it, and we'll figure it out from there. And I will confess there was lots of stumbles coming out of the block, but we made a comic, and that was the important thing because we were actually able to take that then and submit it around to different publishers. And once you get your first thing published, the rest of it's not easy, but the first one is the hardest, and once you get that done, the rest of it kind of follows. So that's my break-in story.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. Is this working?
Yeah,
working? Okay.
you're hold the steel.
So I was always a comic book fan as a kid, and went through school, didn't really know what I wanted to do, and then I became a lawyer. So I'm a lawyer, but I still loved comics, and I've got at the time, she's a little bit older, but I had a teenage daughter, and I was looking out at what comics had to offer, in my opinion, for teenage girls, and I was disappointed. I didn't see a strong lead character that, in my opinion, was not over-sexualized in comics, and being a father of a young girl, I had a problem with that. So I've always been taught that if you don't like how things are, change them, do something different. So
But I want to complain.
You want to complain?
Yeah, I want to complain.
Yeah.
Just, I don't like something. I'd just rather complain.
I complain too.
Okay,
but,
all right.
but so what I did was I had this idea, this concept about Rochelle, which is a teenage girl with cockroach DNA, and wanted to tell another story in it too. It tried to teach people that just because someone or something is different from us, it doesn't mean that we're better than them or that they're better than us. It just means that we're different. So I take a teenage girl and I combine her with what most people would consider probably the most disgusting thing in the world, a cockroach. But where does she get her superpowers from? She gets her superpowers from the cockroach. So it tries to teach you that even if you look at something like a cockroach and give it an opportunity, you can learn that even a cockroach has positive attributes. So I had this concept, and I went back through some of my old comics and looked up an artist that I had admired when I was a kid. His name is Del Barris. And Del had broken into the industry in the 70s with Savage Sword of Conan. And then he had done the Blue Beetle, which was similar to the character that I was trying to create. And I just wrote him a blind letter and told him who I was and what my idea was. And probably about 6 months later, I got a letter back from Del with a note that said, I love it, I'll come out of retirement, send me a script and we'll do it. So then I faced a conundrum. I had no idea how to write a comic book script. I had this great idea, but I had no idea. Now this guy, big in the industry, says, send me a script. So I'm like, I gotta get a script. So what did I do? I got online and looked up the writer of one of my favorite series when I was a kid, Crises on Infinite Earths. So, older people might remember that a little bit from the 80s. And his name's Marv Wolfman. So I did some research. I found out Marv Wolfman's address, and I wrote Marv Wolfman a letter. And I explained to him again, like I did with Del, who I was, and that I had found an artist who was interested in helping me out. And I had no idea how to write a script. So Marv Wolfman mailed me a photocopy of one of the scripts, and he said, there's your format. So now I had an artist, and I had a format, and I produced a script. We put the first book out. As luck would have it, Del was friends with a gentleman named Mark Heike, who's a Central Florida guy. And he runs AC Comics, which has been around for quite a few years, with a series called FemForce. And they agreed to run Rochelle as an issue 0 flip book on the back of one of their FemForces, FemForce 170. That was in 2015. And as luck would have it, sometimes doors just open at the right time. The book was noticed by a gentleman named Joe Dunn, who is the CEO of Antarctic Press, which is based out of San Antonio, Texas. And I got a phone call from them, and they said, we love the idea. If you're not with AC Comics, come on over. And we've been going with Antarctic Press ever since. And we had a nice series run, and in 2016, we were picked up by a bunch of sites as one of the top new indie comics for superheroes. And we're back coming back to bookstores now. We're back for pre-orders again. But as Roland said, once you get that first book done, things aren't easy, but doors do tend to swing open a little easier for you because people see that you can actually do something. A lot of people can talk, but not a lot of people can walk, I think is a good way of saying it. So once that happened, I was contacted by some other individuals. Another thing I was a fan of as a kid, I was a fan of professional wrestling. So all of a sudden I started getting emails and messages from people about doing comic books for pro wrestlers. And the first one, I wasn't told. There's a guy who wants to talk to you about doing a book. And whenever people talk to him about doing his book, no one ever does it. And I said, well, tell me his name and his phone number, and I'll give him a call, because when I tell somebody I'm going to do something, I get it done. So he says, well, here's his phone number, and his name's Nikolai Volkov. And boom, my jaw hit the floor. I mean, I don't know how many people remember Nikolai, but Nikolai, he won the World Tag Team Championship at the first WrestleMania with the Iron Sheik. So I contacted Nikolai. We got his first 2 issues out. From there, it transferred over to the Killer Bees. Whoops, I think we just lost the mic. Oh, here we go. We're back. The Macho Man, Randy Savage's brother, Randy Poffo, we've done his book. We've got books coming out for Bruno Sammartino. We did one for Hacksaw Jim Duggan. So this mic is bad, but so it does. The doors open and things start happening a little bit more for you once you do get that first one done. I know I just ran on and on.
No, it's good. It's all good stuff.
But that's me.
Let me borrow this for a minute.
Okay.
We're going to take an audience question real quick. What do you got? Who are you, and what's the question you have for our panel today?
Lillian, and do you have any advice for beginners for reading comics?
Sure.
I'm gonna pass the mic over.
The
The first thing I would say is advice for a beginner is: are you an artist or are you writing? So the first thing I would say is draw every day, every single day. Draw. I don't care. I don't care if you work a 12-hour job, go to school. Doesn't matter. Find time to draw. Okay? Because if it's something that you really want to do, you'll make time to do it. The second thing is don't not do something because you don't think you're ready. Okay. The cool thing about where we are today with our technology is it's so easy to get a comic published today.
if this were 30 years ago, I would tell you that
I lost it, didn't I? If this were 30 years ago, I'd tell you, well,
there's this long process about printing this and printing that, and I think this is just going in and out. I'm not sure. Can you still hear me though?
Okay, so, but today we have, you know what print on demand is? Yeah, so today we have print on demand. So the beauty of print on demand is if you can finish your book,
You can go to a print on demand printer and print your book, and it looks like
a comic book.
right. It just this was printed by a print on demand printer, right? And it looks just like a comic book that you would buy, off the rack in the comic shop. So.
And who is the printer?
This is the printer for this one is Kablam, right? And yes, I fly their flag because they do a fantastic job with all of my books. When someone asks about it, I usually say, "Here, this is their printing." I mean, I did the book, but they printed this, so take a look at it because the
Proof is in the pudding there. And it seems to be working again, okay? So that's one of the first things draw every day. Next thing is
do it.
don't just piddle around, don't just do sketches, don't do this or that, but create something, right? Something that's yours, or get with if you're an artist, get with a writer. If you don't feel comfortable with that, find a writer. Have them write a story, and you do the artwork.
And print your book. Because the thing, have you ever heard the idea? I don't know who it is. Maybe you can help me out here. Have you ever heard the idea that it takes 10,000 hours to master a skill? Well, it's true. I mean, and the thing about doing a comic is that I don't know if it's 10,000 hours so much. I've heard
Artists say that it takes 1,000 pages, right? It takes 1,000 pages to actually master being a comic book artist. Well, there's only 52 pages in this
comic book, so you do the math. That's a lot of pages.
So, and this is why I say draw every day, because if you're not drawing every day, it's going to take you a long time to get to 1,000 pages. But figure out what it is you want to do. Make sure you have an interest in it, and then do your comic. Do your comic and put it out. The first thing you do, you might not sell very many copies. Don't let that worry you, because go on to the next thing. You have to remember that your first thing is your first thing, right? Your first thing is not usually the best thing. So, do you play a musical instrument by any chance? No. So you kind of do, right? So, which one? Okay. So, the first time you picked up a guitar, what's your favorite band?
Fall Out Boy.
Okay, I don't know if Fall Out Boy. So, what's one of their songs that you like?
I forgot the name of it.
It really doesn't matter. Just name one.
Just call it that song they did.
That song. Okay. So the first time you picked up a guitar, could you play that song by the Fall Out Boys? No, you couldn't. Can you play it now? A little bit. Okay. But how long did it take you to get from there, from the first time you picked up the guitar to playing it like this a little bit? Hours and hours and hours? Yes. Okay. So the thing that you have to realize is that comics are the same way. And so many times artists think, oh, I can draw, I should do a comic book right now, right? Perfectly, right? But no, that's did I do that? I'm sorry. But that's not the case. It's like a musical instrument in that you've got to spend hours and hours and hours and hours in it. This is why I say draw every day, right? And do a comic. Because the first one you do is probably not going to be very good, but don't let that worry you. Do the next one. And if you can look at the next one and it's better than the first one, then you're on the right path, right? As long as the next thing you do is better than the last thing you did, you're on the right path.
Well, I agree 100% with everything he said. If I could add something to that, it would probably be don't defeat yourself. I think the biggest issue that most people have, and I know I had it, and I can probably honestly say Nolan probably had it at one point in his life, And I know my daughter had it. My daughter's, I don't know how old you are, but I don't think you're much younger than my daughter. She's an amazing artist herself. But I think the problem that most people have is that we're our worst critics. And I've seen people put something out there to me, I mean, it's like a Picasso. And they're like, it's crap, and they start crying and they run to their room and they want to tear it up. No, don't defeat yourself, okay? And always remember that you're always going to be your worst critic.
Yes.
You know, so what you think is horrible, a lot of people are going to love it. So don't, and I think what happens with people too is once they do that and they start hiding, I remember in our fraternity, you're not supposed to say the ritual, but who cares? I mean, I'm almost 50. The thing was, you know, don't hide your light under a bushel, but let it shine for everyone to see. Okay, so if you ever, you know, have self-doubt and you start hiding the things that you do, you know, you're not only cheating other people, you're cheating yourself. Because if you've got a desire and you want to do something, you can do anything in this world, believe it. Okay, I mean, I've had people ask me, how did I get published? You know, my first book ever, how did it get published? And I said, well, you know, a lot of it was luck, you know, but a lot of it is determination. You know, if you write a book and you're looking for a publisher, not everybody has to publish. Some people do self-publishing. But if you're really looking for a publisher, and I'll just give a figure. Say you write to 100 different publishers, and you get 99 rejection letters. And you're crying and you're in bed, and then your dad walks in the room and he says, honey, got another letter. And you open that letter, and number 100 says, hey, yeah, we like it. You're a success. You know, you made it. So, you know, I was talking to some of the guys upstairs, and I'm sure they're going to do panels later. One of them was one of the Walking Dead guys, Fat Joey. I wish I could remember his real name. I hate calling somebody Fat Joey. Josh. And we were talking about The Walking Dead. Do you know how many networks turned away The Walking Dead before they got picked up by AMC? And look where they're at now. I mean, if those guys had self-doubt and said, oh, you know, they said it's a bad idea, they don't like zombies, and they walked away, television would be a totally different place, you know? So, you know, don't defeat yourself.
Also, I'll add from my experience and point of view, you have to realize that it's a business. And a lot of people make this mistake right away. They don't treat it like it's a job.
Right.
You have to, the idea of writer's block, artist block, you don't have that when you're at home because you don't have the advantage of having it. That's your office. When you go to work, you still have to work.
Yeah.
So never tell someone, oh, I couldn't draw today. Yes, you could. Your drawing might not be the best it'll ever be that day, but you can still draw. Get it into that routine. That's why you got to reach out to writers, and you got to find writers to work with. You have to get in the habit, because it's like going to the gym. You go to the gym, you're not going to lift 400 pounds, right? No one goes there, but you want to. You go to the gym so you can lift 400 pounds, because that's your goal. You have to make yourself goals, and you have to live by them. You want to do that. Like he said, you have to go through the steps of making art every day, but you also have to get used to writing with, working with writers, because those writers will help you learn. Because they're going to teach you what they want, and you'll learn your style, and it becomes a process. Don't ever show up somewhere and say, I'm ready, take me.
Right.
Because you're not.
Yeah.
Because if you're ready, they'll tell you.
I'll add this too. Zeb brought up something that I remember probably about a year ago. You know, things happen when you like an industry. I think things just happen. Weird things happen. So I was buying a new house with my wife, and I walk in and I meet this older gentleman, and his name's Ron Cook, and he says, "So what do you do?" And I said, "I don't usually tell people I'm an attorney." So my wife blurts out, "He writes comic books." So the guy goes, "Really? Hold on a second." And he gets up and he walks out of the room. He goes back. He comes back. He's got a portfolio, and he says, "I used to be the art director for Mattel Toys." And he designed all of the He-Man mini comics back, and he designed all of Barbie's clothes and stuff like that. And he was trying to coach my daughter at the same time about, because she's an artist, she's not a writer, she's an artist. And he was trying to coach her, and he goes, one thing you've got to learn in this industry, and Rob made me think of this, about it being a business. You have to understand when you're an
Can you
artist,
just come closer so you can hear?
and you're hired by, whether it be a writer or you're hired by a publisher or something to do something, sometimes you have to draw things you don't want to draw.
Yeah.
You have to understand that your creativity only goes so far. But I remember him saying, he said, I had fun drawing He-Man, I had fun doing, designing clothes for Barbie, but if someone came up to me and told me to draw an apple, I drew the apple. I didn't say, no, I'm too good for the apple. You know, if that's what they're paying you to do, do it.
It goes back to it's a business.
It's a
Yeah,
business.
it's always going to be, this is what I want to do. You don't go to a work and tell them, well, today I'm not going to do that because I'm not in the mood. I have workers block. Then they're going to be like, well, we have employee block that buys, we're replacing you. And that's what it is. You have to remember that you're hiring yourself. When you become a creator, you have hired yourself to create. And if you're not creating, you need to do something about it, or you need to stop calling yourself a creator. And I know it sounds harsh, but it's the truth. Because that's what it is. You have to have that voice in the back of your head that says, no more excuses. Because the thing I ask everyone when they come to these panels, how many people have time to watch TV? Everyone raises their hand. How many people have time to play video games? Everyone raises their hand. How many people have writer's block? People raise their hand. That's where your writer block is. Treat those as rewards, not as something you do before you work. Don't go on a binge and 3 o'clock in the morning. Oh man, I got to draw now.
Yeah.
I'm so tired. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'll tell you why, because at 9 o'clock in the morning, that wasn't the first thing you thought of in the morning. So 9 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock, whenever you wake up, first thing, what am I accomplishing today?
Yeah.
Do you guys have any other questions? Follow up, feel free to ask. Well, one of the questions that I know a lot of people constantly ask when we go to these different events is the most common one. How did you meet your artists? Because you guys are writers, and meeting an artist, we heard some of your story, but you have other artists. How do you build that relationship? Was it something that your publisher gave you for you? Was it someone you were paired with, or did you go out of your way to find those artists?
Well, for me, it's kind of a mixed bag because I've been doing this so many years. I've worked with a lot of different artists. So some of them are artists that the publisher said, "Hey, you know, we're going to do this story. This is the artist you're going to work with." But more times than not, it's people that I know. It's people that I've met at conventions like this. Like I met 3 new artists at this convention. Guys that I'd never met before. Guys I didn't know. Now, will something happen with that? I don't know. I have no idea. But it's part of it is it's a relationship thing. When you work with people, you want to work with people that you like, people that you like, people that you get along with. So my first one, it was just guys that I met in college. They were struggling to break into comics from the artist side, and I was trying to break into comics from the writer side. And we just talked and said, "Hey, why don't we do our own thing, right?" And as a result of that, you kind of get into the industry and you start going to conventions and you start meeting, your one friend introduces you to another friend and one friend introduces you to another friend and you start meeting people. I mean, today, I've met people online. I mean, it's weird as you don't really meet somebody online.
No, but it's a good point,
yeah.
Because look at Written Sins. I've met every single one of my artists through a website I created to advocate for indie comics, so that's absolutely true.
Yep.
The internet's the new way to meet people.
It is. And so I think that's a fantastic opportunity. There's some good sites out there that you can post your work and see artists' work in order to kind of form a. I mean, still you should work to foster a relationship with somebody that you're interested in working with. So even whether it's online or live, it doesn't matter. It's a relationship, right? There's some really good sites that you can post your work to. I know for me, when I'm looking for artists online, if I'm looking for something new, I'll go to a place called Penciljack, penciljack.com, and it's kind of a workshop for artists. They post their work there, and what they want is the other artists to come on and critique their work. And you can learn a lot of stuff just by seeing the kind of things that they critique. So there's no one way to meet an artist. There's a lot of different avenues. But I always say, meeting someone face to face is always the best way to do it.
Okay, I can see what I can. This one. We'll try yours. We're gonna try this one. Okay, this one's working. There we go. For now. Okay. Well, you heard my earlier story, how I met my initial artist, Del Barris, and it's kind of neat when you meet an artist. I know Roland can probably attest to this too. Not every artist and writer really mesh together, and it's not necessarily they can be great friends. If no one were an artist, we could be the best buddies. But it doesn't necessarily mean he sees my words the way I see my words. So I kind of got lucky with Del. And I kind of had a hint because I studied his work for quite a few years before I ever knew him. But when I send him a script, he actually draws what I envision, so it flows really well, which is kind of nice. It's like, because he does a lot of my wrestling books too. But beyond that, kind of like Roland said, once I got that first book out there, you'd be amazed at how the doors open for artists looking for writers. Because I get solicitations from people all the time. Please check out my art. I just sent you my portfolio if you have a book coming up. So a lot of that, and again, most of that is either online or I do a lot of shows now. So I'll have people come up to my desk and hand me their card, or they'll bring a little portfolio book and show me their art and try to let me see what they do. And have I hired anyone? I guess I probably have picked up maybe something like that. But for the most part, it's good because even if I don't use you right away, you're in my head.
Right.
And if you bring a card or leave me a card, then I got that to take with me. And I do take notes of everybody. I do keep it in mind because you never know when you might need something.
Well, and it goes back to the relationship
It's a
thing,
relationship.
right? Because
Well, I mean-
a year later, somebody that you met, you might say, hey,
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
and then I've had the same thing with not with the wrestling books so much, but with Rochelle. They did provide me my cover artists. They just said, hey, John, we've got a guy who's an in-house artist with Anarchic, and we think he'd be a nice fit for doing covers for your book. So sometimes people are just kind of like in with a publisher, and the publisher designates them out for different series and things like that. But that's something that's in the future. But for you as an artist, if you're not a writer, honestly, the best thing for you to do is to continue to go to shows like this. And these are good networking tools. I mean, it's not just about seeing the cosplayers or stuff like that. It's a good opportunity, especially
bring your artwork to
Yeah,
shows.
it's all
show
about-
them to people who show them the guano guy, show them to the artist up there. Just say, hey, this is my artwork. Can you give me feedback?
Absolutely, and
That's,
that's
the thing you got to be prepared is that if they say negative stuff, this doesn't mean they don't like you, right? They're not saying, oh, you're terrible, I hate you, blah blah blah. No, they're just saying, you know what, this is not very good. You need more practice, right? That's
Don't
all
ever take it
is.
personal.
Yeah, don't ever take it personal because no, they don't mean it personal. But get feedback because they'll help you to see the things that you might not be seeing in your own work. They'll help you see the things in your work that you say, oh, yeah, you're right. I do draw funny knees. I've got to fix my knees. Don't work that way. And you might not have noticed it, but an artist might tell you, and then you can recognize it and you can fix it.
and you're at a very good time right now because you're in an opportunity where these cons are held all the time, and with online where you have more access to big time creators than anybody has ever had before.
Yeah.
I mean, the ability to walk up to a table and talk to a published writer or artist or editor and have one-on-one time and be able to pick their brains and show them your work, that never existed before.
Yeah.
So, by all means, take advantage of the opportunities.
You can't be shy.
Well-
And here's the thing: most writers and artists, most creative people, do have a tendency to be shy, and you can't be shy. You got that's the one thing you got to say. I got to get over that. Yes, I'm nervous, my lips sweating, right? But I got to walk up and ask, because if you don't, then
And 9 times out
I'm
of 10,
talking without the microphone. I'm sorry.
They're probably just as shy as you are.
Yeah.
And then you also you bring up the good point, and this goes to anyone who asks a question about creating comics. As a writer, I always had an idea. I had a lot of trouble finding artists. I cannot tell you to this date why I had so much trouble. Because now, and John can attest this, I can go on Facebook any day of the week and say I want to make a comic book. I'll get 15 people saying, yeah, let's do it. The way I did it is I made a comic book that was a newspaper. And just by having made that, artists took me serious. They were like, there's a passion. So it goes back to what they're saying. It's going back to the first question. If you're not creating anything, you're an idealist. You're not a creator.
Right.
All you're doing, and I said this is about a writer. How do you become a writer? You write. But what if I write down an idea? You didn't write. You just wrote. You scribbled a note. You made a note.
You made a grocery list.
A writer writes, and it doesn't have to be a novel, but it has to be a thought, an idea. Because no artist is gonna. Because this happens, and you guys have seen this. People go, "Oh, I'm a writer. I have an idea." Artist goes, "Cool. Let me see the script." "Oh, I don't have a script yet."
Right.
No. I know what's
Well,
going
it's
to
kind of
happen.
like John's example.
I was an idealist.
Yeah.
But
I had an
I
idea.
progressed. I
Yeah,
learned it.
right.
I went. Moved
Yeah,
forward.
but for John that worked because he was able to get someone. I'm sure you didn't tell me you didn't have a script. You probably told
No.
him, "Give me a week.
Yeah.
I'll
I-
give you the polished
Yeah,
one."
never show your.
It's on the
Yeah.
way.
I'm not going to encourage you to be a poker player, but never show.
Yeah, you gotta, in the
Never
beginning,
show
you
your-
really do have to fake it till you make it.
If
You
someone,
never
if someone
let
says,
anyone go.
you got a script to say, yeah.
Yeah,
You know, then
just
you
give me a
do it.
week. Let me edit it.
I just got to get it off the computer. And then you just go do it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And if you see the artist take it and be like, "Oh, I want to adjust it to your art," because I
Right.
want, and you're buying yourself time, but don't miss your deadlines. Don't miss you tell someone you're going to get it done, even if you want to still improve it and say, hey, listen, this is what I have now.
Right.
You deliver something on
Yeah.
that day.
Yep.
And now, do you guys have any questions? Creating comics? All right, one question that I do know that gets asked a lot of creators, and we'll wrap it up with this one. Everyone wants to know, how do I get the exposure? How do I get my comic book to sell? Can you go over the avenues that each one of you use to build that bigger fan base in this day and age? Whether it be Instagram, Facebook, what has worked for you and why does it work for you?
For me, I have an online presence, but for me, I have more success going to shows. And part of that is, my family always kind of laugh at me, and my son's here, you can ask. But you might not guess it from here, but I'm not an extroverted person. I'm an introvert, right? But what happens is I get here, and this is my environment. I love comics. I grew up reading. I said earlier, I learned to read reading comics. So you put me in my environment, and I'm no longer that introvert. I'm an extrovert. So I find it very easy to talk to people. Okay, it's easy for when I met John. Easy for me to walk up and talk to John. It's easy. Like I said, I met 3 new artists just here at this show. It was easy for me to walk up and say something to them. Not that I'm.
Would you
super
say
extrovert.
it's your passion? Because you show your passion,
Yes,
it builds that
it
audience
is-
here,
it
you
is
could
my
show
passion. Yes, it is my passion. And when I see people doing the thing that I love, oh, you got a comic? Cool. Can I look at it? Let me flip through it. Let's talk about comics. Let's talk about this and that. So when people walk by and they see, a comic on my table, then it's easy for me to say, hey, look, I wrote this. Ask me any questions. And so it's easy for me to do that at a show. Yeah, sometimes I lose my voice because I'm not accustomed to talking so much. I get a sore throat, that kind of thing. But I find it easier to do it live because people get to meet me and talk with me, and it all goes back to me to relationships, right? If I meet you and I talk to you, and you're like, I got $20 I need to spend at the show, right? And you look around and nobody else talked to you. Well, you're gonna say, hell, I don't really like fairy tales, but that guy was really nice. I'm gonna go drop my $20 on his book and check it out. Support him, maybe some, right? And check it out. So I've had success that way, more so than online.
Well, I say it all the time as you pass the mic to John. I don't buy a table to sell comic books. I buy a table to meet people.
Right.
I'm meeting my fans, I'm meeting people, and I want to hear what people want creatively. I want to hear what the stories they want to see next are, because maybe I can make that.
Right.
Being, the unboxable advocating creator I am. And that's cool because I get to hear from you guys, I get to meet artists. It's all about networking. But John, I know you did something very unique to actually build. Yeah, the new thing.
I'll go into that later. I'll tell you the first thing I did. See, I came in a little different position than Roland did. I mean, I'm in my late 40s and never done comics. So some people are in comics and they've already kind of built a brand for themselves. I had no brand. I had never even been to a Comic Con before I did my first comic. So I had very little sleep. And here's what I did. I remember somebody asked me this question. Did anybody know who Orson Scott Card is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great science fiction writer.
Yeah, he wrote Ender's Game. Okay, so first con I ever did, second con I ever did, first really big con I ever did, somehow someone invited me to be a guest at the Science Fiction Writers Symposium or something here in Orlando. And my table mate was Orson Scott Card. So I see this, I'm like, holy crap. And I remember sitting next to Orson, and I said, and I had this little black and white comic book that I did, and I said, Orson, everybody in this room is a New York Times bestseller. And he says, and I said, I'm not. And he just leans over and he goes, fake it.
Yeah.
So he goes, they don't know fake it. So what I did is I spent a lot of time online, and I don't know, I never told this to anybody, but what I did, I spent a lot of time online, and I talked to a bunch of artists and got them to do me a bunch of like Rochelle pinups. And then I posted them all over the internet for a year. Loaded them, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, anywhere I could think of putting them. And then I released the book, and the people came up and said, "We've heard of that. Where have we heard of that?" Well, they heard of it because I put it all over the internet.
That's great.
Which is viral marketing.
Yeah, and they're
Yes.
like, "Oh my God, we've heard of this, Rochelle. Where's the book?" Yeah, it's all over the internet. It's been on the internet for over a year, but I'm the one who put it all over the internet.
But that's important. You have to build that viral campaign.
Exactly. And then from there, I started doing shows, and then obviously I was making connections with fans at shows and things like that. And then the other thing I did, I remember my wife went around with me this. I started going door to door to comic book stores and just walking in the door and carrying my comic in, introducing myself and saying, "Hey, this is my book. Here's who I am. Here's what I'm doing. I'd love for you to take a look at it and think about carrying it sometime in the future." And I didn't know what they would think when I did, but one time they didn't know where my wife was. My wife, she kind of wandered in after me, and I walked out. And she told me after she got in the car, she said, "You know what that guy said when he left?" I said, "What's that?" He said, "I'm going to buy his comic book because he believes in himself and he believes in it. And if anybody believes in themselves as much as he believes in it, it's got to be good." You know?
That's true.
So you got to learn to sell yourself, and you got to learn to fake it sometimes. You know, it kind of goes back to my never show your card, never show your hand.
And, and you fake it long enough, soon enough, you become it. And you don't, last year was my first year having a comic book on the road, having it at table. And I remember telling everyone for a long time, "Oh, I want to be a comic book creator. I want to be a comic book creator." And then one day I stopped saying I want. And I am a comic book creator.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize I had said it. And then a few weeks go by and I go, "Wait a minute. I'm not talking about it anymore. I am it." But tell us about that other cool thing that you were coming up with. Yeah.
So, don't steal my ideas. But I figured, not a lot of people want unsolicited, and this isn't working.
It's not even working now, so you have to be real close to hear this.
A lot of people don't want unsolicited information. So here's a good hint for you. Do you do Facebook? I know Facebook's more for old people. Now, that's what my daughter tells me. So am I right? Facebook's old people stuff. You guys use like other things, and she won't tell me what they are because I'm not supposed to follow them. But
Snapchat.
yeah, Snapchat. Okay, so a lot of it, and I was trying to figure out the best way to let comic book stores know about my book. Because one time what I did, a couple years ago, I would go onto Facebook and I would send a private message to every single comic book store, okay? And I could get like 200 done in a day, 250. So I mean, I put a lot of time into this. And so about a week or so ago, I tried to do the same thing. I got about 10 of them out before Facebook stopped me and said, "You're spamming people." So they've changed the formula on Facebook, so you can't do that anymore. So I was like, "Oh crap, how am I supposed to get a hold of comic stores now?" Because I'm in Florida. I want to reach people in New Mexico. I want to reach people in California. I want to get people in New York. So I went online on Google and I Googled comic book store addresses. No, nothing pops up. But one guy's blog popped up. And I started reading through his blog, And his blog said, never send unsolicited solicitations to comic book stores and things like that.
They'll just throw it away.
They'll throw it away. They don't want that. Write them a private email, personal email. And he even wrote in there, it's going to take you a long damn time. But write them all an individualized email and ask their permission to add them to your mailing list. He goes, even if they normally would say no, you were just polite. You didn't just spam them with a bunch of stuff. Yeah. You told them, "I'd like to send you something. If you don't want me to, just don't respond. If you do want me to, just let me know, and I'll add it. Otherwise, I'll never bother you again." So I did that, and I spent 3 nights. I was talking about I would get up at 9 in the morning until 3 o'clock in the morning, writing every comic book store I could think of, and I'm not done yet. And in 2 days, I've got a retailer list of almost 200 retail stores that have all agreed voluntarily to accept my solicitation. So I know right off the bat, I'm sending it to people who are interested because they've said they're interested. Mm-hmm. And I've got a willing audience that is potentially an audience that is going to order. Now, if I can get each of those comic book stores to order 2 books, there's at least 400 pre-orders right there before fans go out and order books. And it's not including ones I didn't reach. You might see it in the Diamond magazine. So it's kind of goes back to a lot of stuff Rob is saying and Roland's saying. I'm saying you got to treat it like a job if you really want to do it. And if you're going to do a job, do your best. And there's going to be times when you're going to bust your ass. I mean, I've got a nephew who's younger and he works with me. And what does he want? He wants somebody to hand him a paycheck at the end of the day. But he doesn't want to really work.
Yeah.
And no offense to him, I hope he never sees this. But, but if you're gonna ever make it in this world, you're gonna have it's blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, not literally blood. Hopefully, not blood, but
You have paper cuts.
I took a bite from a snake trying to do a promotional video, so sometimes it's blood. But you're gonna have to work hard. But you're gonna be so rewarding. There's nothing more rewarding. I tell you, one of the most rewarding things I ever had was I had a little girl about 11 years old walk up to my table and say she loved my story.
Well, what about the first time you guys open your comic? First comic you had, that moment when it's done and it's in your hand.
No, exactly. Well, double on that. I didn't mention it earlier. I based my comic. I told you I did my comic for my daughter. I based the character on her physically, and I didn't tell her. So when I opened that first comic with her, and we flipped open to that page, and she said, "Dad, that's me." That was, the feeling like, because not only I'd done something for me, I'd done something for my kid,
Yeah, it's like with Jax. He's 2 and he loves his comic. All he'll do is run around with it. He'll rip up any book, but he's never ripped that book up. There are those moments that's what you have to remember.
Yeah.
Every day that you're giving up video games, television, you're not giving them up. You're making something instead. You're making a choice to make content. Now, we're going to wrap it up because these guys got to get back to the table. Tell us where we can follow both of you gentlemen.
You can find me. It's easy. It's easy to find. I have the same caricature. I don't know if I have it in here. I have the same caricature on all my social media, but the best place to start would be www.rolandman.me, and then that will lead you to my Facebook and my Instagram. I have all that stuff. I'm real easy to find. So rolandman.me.
Okay, me. I'm an old guy, so I'm on Facebook.
You're also on Kickstarter.
And on Kickstarter, I'm okay. I got a Kickstarter running right now, currently. It's got about 3 days left.
So go pledge.
So go pledge, we'll pledge. It's for a one-shot comic for Lanny Poffo. He's the brother of the Macho Man. It's his life story, which is really interesting.
But he's a legend in his own right.
He is definitely a legend in his own. But you can also find me on Facebook, just John Crowther. I accept most requests, unless you're like some fake one that's telling it's going to post sunglass commercials to my page all the time. I'll
Not
accept
a Russian bride.
But you can find me, John Crowther. RochelleTheTeenCockroach.com has links to all of the Rochelle social sites, whether they be Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Also, if you like wrestling and you like wrestling comics, or you just want to check them out, if you go on Facebook and you look up Squared Circle Comics, you can follow that page, and it lets you know every time we release a new wrestling book. And there's also InversePress.com is the main company for Squared Circle. So if you go to Inverse, they have a little link that says Squared Circle. You can go there and it takes you to all the comic books and let you know about new releases and things like that.
And if you're here at the show watching this, stop by and see us.
Yep,
We're on
Artist
second
Alley.
floor.
Second floor.
Right off the
I'm right
escalator
next
behind
to you.
Behind,
right across from John.
And you have to go, when you get off the escalator, go behind the first aisle. There is actually an aisle there.
And she's not here, but I'm going to give a plug. My daughter, Jalen Byrne, she's also a pretty big YouTuber, and she's here today on the second floor as well. And you can find her on, just type in Jalen Byrne on YouTube. And she's got some really, if you're like animals, like really crazy animals, we own everything from, believe it or not, hissing cockroaches to snakes, to tarantulas, chinchillas, rabbits, dogs, chickens.
This is a family show. Stop scaring people.
Exactly. and she's an amazing kid. She's got all these animals all over the place with her all the time.
And
so
of course,
kind of
there's that Written Sin site, which advocates for indie comics.
Absolutely.
You guys might want to check that out. Thank you, guys.
Right next to me.
And you're right next. We're all together. Actually,
Right.
we're all looking at each other.
Yeah.
Right.
We're having a great time here.
Exactly.
It's been
Having
an
fun.
interesting show.
All right, read
Come
more
join
comics.
us. We're in Orlando.
Sounds good.